Why are we talking about going to bed with Wilma Flintstone? We're not. Instead, we're here to talk about the Star Trek franchise, or more specifically, the Star Trek reviews that I've been doing. Now, well, I'll start at the beginning. I know I did say I'm not going to do the Star Trek films and TV shows in the order they were made. No, instead, I'm going to do them in the order they're set. But I said that a year ago, and they've made another Star Trek film, Star Trek Beyond. So after I've done this review, I won't have a choice, will I? I'm going to have to do Star Trek reviews in the order they're made, as opposed to the order they're set. Anyway, another technical issue here. In one of my reviews, the review I did of the movie Star Trek, made in 2009, I said the same actor that played Kirk played his father. He didn't. It's a different actor, a very good likeness, an actor that looks almost exactly like Chris Pine, but it's not him, it's a different actor. So how could I make such a silly mistake? Well, in my defence, I'd only seen, that film a few times, and I hadn't seen that many Chris Pine films. I have since then, so I'm much more familiar with what the actor looks like. So I now know that, no, it's a different actor playing him in the opening sequence of the 2009 film. So I'm sorry for that mix-up. They got an actor that looks a lot like him, but it's not him. Okay, time for the big picture. This is Star Trek Nemesis. It is the bane of the Star Trek franchise. It's a terrible movie. Even the most die-hard Star Trek fans hate it, And it was released in late 2002, early 2003, and it was supposed to be the film that gets everything back on track, or back on Star Trek. But it did the opposite. Everything went into decline. There wasn't another Star Trek film for 6 and a bit years. So yes, that's a huge age gap between Star Trek films. But that's how awful it was. That's how badly received it was. And as if that wasn't enough, at the same time, the newest Star Trek TV show, which was Star Trek Enterprise, the ratings for that were plummeting, going really downhill. So yes, everything was going downhill for Star Trek, yeah. And, Star Trek Nemesis, not quite as bad as fans make out. It is pretty awful, but how can I put this? It's got a more serious tone, because the last Star Trek Insurrection wasn't that well received, the last film, and the makers of it thought maybe because it was done in a light-hearted way, like a romp, so let's have a more serious tone. Star Trek Nemesis does have a more serious tone, but it's so awful, it's so boring. So it really doesn't matter if your movie has a serious tone or a light-hearted tone, as long as it's gripping. That's what it's all about, it's got to be gripping. And Star Trek Nemesis, yes, it's so awful, it makes the previous film look great. That's how awful it is. But Star Trek Nemesis, it was quite a good story. It's just the style, the way it was done. It was very boring, it wasn't very gripping. And all the actors seem to be giving a lackluster performance. Are they giving bad performances, or is that because that's how the director told them to behave? I don't know. It's weird, Anyway, it starts well. In the opening sequence, a load of Romulans killed by radiation in a really shocking way. Yeah, you don't see it coming. And then we see the big villain, played by the now very famous Tom Hardy, yeah, but this was before he was famous. He is effectively made of the DNA of Captain Picard. So he is a clone of him, yeah. Except he was raised in totally different circumstances, oppressed and treated really badly by the horrible Romulans, and as a result he's a horrible, despicable person. So it's like a nature versus nurture concept. And when, Captain Picard gets to meet him, it's like meeting his other self, and he wonders, would I be like that? Would I be a vicious, evil conqueror if I was put in different circumstances, raised like that? Yeah, it's a frightening thought that, such drastically different people from the same DNA, yeah. So that was quite interesting. So it's not all bad. It does have some interesting bits, but unfortunately they're few and far between. There's lots of very boring bits where the story drags on and drags on. Like, oh, get to the point, please. It drags on, yeah. And it's a shame, because it's a story that had good potential, but just wasn't, it's not gripping. That's the best way I can describe it. Not very gripping, yeah. A lot more of it takes place in space. This feel of a great space battle. The Scimitar, which is the main antagonist, the evil enemy ship. But it just drags on a lot, and the performances are lackluster, and it just needs a bit more, oomph, a bit more gripping, and a few little bloopers here and there. Well, for a start, Riker and Councillor Troy eventually do get married, but they're not naked. I thought if you're a Betazoid, it is traditional to be naked at the wedding ceremony, and they're all fully clothed. Or is this the wedding, or is it the aftermath, the reception, the thing that happens after the wedding? Well, that's not clearly specified. All that is clear is they're married, very happily married. And afterwards, oh yes, we see Data. Well, no, not the other robot that looks just like Data. And I assume, naturally enough, it's the mean Data, his evil brother that went horribly wrong, yeah. It's not. It's a totally different robot that looks just like Data that we've never been referenced before. Right, okay, he's just appeared out of nowhere, just like that, yeah. So yes, a few bits that could have been better explained, better done. And the bit when there's an epic battle between the Enterprise E and the Scimitar, yes, that's well done, a great epic space battle. The big problem is, spoiler alert, Data sacrifices his life to save the rest of the crew of the Enterprise. Now that's stupid for two reasons. It's been done before, it's been done in Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, and it's stupid because 5 minutes later we see the other robot that looks just like Data, which cheapens his death a lot, yeah. So, yeah, they thought that's what the people are going to want, just a copy of Star Trek II. No, that is not what we want. When I see a sequel, I want a new story, not a copy of a successful one, so that's just silly. In other words, the best way I can sum up Star Trek Nemesis, it's called that because the ultimate enemy of the Federation, an evil dictator, an evil conqueror, But unfortunately, the film, it's called Star Trek Nemesis for a much more different reason, because it is the bane of the franchise. It is the nemesis of the franchise. It's the thing that all Star Trek fans hate, because it's such a boring story. So yes, unfortunately, Star Trek Nemesis has a double meaning, that title. Nevertheless, if you're interested to see just how bad it is, or see an early performance from Tom Hardy, it's worth a look, but I personally have only seen it twice, so it's not worth seeing lots of times. But Paramount learned from their mistakes, and they didn't make a movie as bad as Star Trek Nemesis again. Okay, thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Hobbs, and I'm never bored.